This video is based on a workshop created and presented by Maria Jose Gonzalez. It was converted to video format by me, Nadia Williams. This video should help you understand and develop an awareness about the role of reflection in learning, models for reflective practice, types of reflective writing, descriptive versus reflective writing, the structure of a reflective writing report or blog entry, and language and style. How do we learn? Is it just experience, or is it reflecting on experience? Is experience alone enough for learning, or do we need to do something else to learn from experience? Consider why we reflect. What's the point of it? Especially in an educational setting or environment, what does reflection afford you? What does it offer you? You can say it allows you to determine your progress in learning, so you can determine your point in the scope of the learning, basically where you're at. It can allow you to identify areas of weakness that need to be improved. It can also give you an indication of how to enhance your approach to learning, maybe some things you could be doing better, some strategies you could be utilizing. Reflection may challenge your existing points of view by considering your learning, and in that manner bring your learning forward. Especially in subjects that are competence or practical based, it may show your deficits or indeed your competence in that area. All in all, reflection can allow you to adopt strategies to enhance learning. So that's why we reflect. Reflection is not only used in education. There are programs for reflective practice. Doctors, for instance, reflect on their interactions with patients and see how that can be improved. There's a movement in education and in training to introduce reflection on our everyday activities in order to enhance the learning we extract from it. From Graham Gibbs's perspective, it is not sufficient simply to have an experience in order to learn. Without reflection, an experience may quickly be forgotten or its learning potential lost. It is from the feelings and thoughts that emerging from this reflection that generalizations or concepts can be generated, and it is generalizations that allow new situations to be tackled effectively. Two aspects are especially important in reflection. First, going from the particular to the general. This happened in this situation. What can I take from it that will help me in other similar situations? Second, we put in place a plan and a strategy for the next time round that helps us to tackle the situation more effectively. Both these aspects are part of going from experience to concepts that are behind a particular process, that inform a particular process. Reflection helps us to take them with us into similar situations where the same concepts apply. These are some questions for reflection. What did I learn? How did this experience make me feel? What went wrong? Can this experience be linked to evidence? What was challenging or difficult? What went well? What can I find out about my experience? And importantly, what will I change next time? What am I going to put in place in order to correct the challenges or the difficulties that I faced to enhance that particular experience for myself or for others that I'm working with? Those are the questions that you need to ask yourself, and they can be applied to all sorts of situations, from study situations to a practical situation in the workplace. You can just have the pros and the cons. What went right? What didn't go so well? What were the challenges? Can those challenges be informed by some theory, by some evidence? What am I going to do next time round to make this situation better for everybody involved and for that learning to take root and enhance my learning? Take time to really comprehend this graphic. In order to reflect, you have to be aware of what is going on in and around you, what you feel. Is the experience provoking feelings of unease or realizations of lack of knowledge in an area? What is it, that awareness that brings about noticing, that in turn you can use to reflect? It is this awareness and noticing that allows you to learn from an experience. Importantly, Writing about your experience can really encompass all these different areas and allows you to put on paper those ideas, those feelings, those memories of the event. It can help you to judge them better and with more evidence rather than something that is playing in your head. In addition, if you have something in writing, you can return to it and see, okay, so that's what was happening there in that point in time, and those are the strategies I put in place, and this is how it's going for me now, and what changes have taken place. Have a look at those 4 statements. Which do you think is the best definition for reflective writing? Pause the video to read through them and decide. While all 4 are true about reflective writing, C is the most complete definition. So now that we're clear about what reflective writing is, let's have a look at a few different models you can use to shape it. This is the experiential learning cycle from Kolb from 1984. It begins with a concrete experience, moves to reflective observation, then to abstract conceptualization of the underlying issue, the generalization we referred to before. The final step then is to put active experimentation into place. So in a concrete situation, you notice something through a reflective observation. Can that be extrapolated to a higher level? If you can come up with a plan, you put an experiment in place and see whether it works better. Your next option is the Gibbs reflective model. In many disciplines at university, this is the preferred model. It is detailed and gives you very clear instructions. First, a description. What happened? Next, feelings. What were you thinking? What did the situation make you feel? What did it reveal at an emotional level? Then, an evaluation. What was good and bad about the experience? After that, analysis. What sense can you make of the situation? A general conceptualization, if you like. Next, the conclusion. What else could you have done? And then finally, what is your plan of action? What would you do differently in the future if that situation or a similar situation arose? Having reflected and having looked at a particular issue and implications and made a generalization, what would you do? Your next option was designed in the 1970s by school teacher Terry Borton. It's very simple. What? So what? And now what? First, what? What exactly occurred in your own words? What is the purpose of reflecting on it? What did you see? What did you do? What was your reaction, your feelings, your emotions? What did other people do who were present in that situation? What were the key aspects of the situation? Next is the so what. Why does it matter? This is where you analyze the situation, get to the meaning of it, understand the context. So what did you feel at the time? What do you feel now? Are there any differences? Why? So what were the effects of what you did or did not do? So what good emerged from the situation for yourself, for others? So what troubles you, if anything? Reflect on your feelings and emotions to extract learning, to show why this matters. Were your feelings similar to colleagues, fellow students, and so on? So what are the main reasons for feeling differently from your colleagues, if you do? Finally, it's now what? What are the implications? What needs to happen to change the situation? What are you going to do about the situation? What happens if you decide not to change anything? What might you do differently if you face the situation again? How are you going to prepare yourself for facing a similar situation in the future? What are you going to base your decision on? Will it be a purely intuitive decision, or are you going to base it on some study or research or reading about that topic? The deep DIP model for reflection is adapted from BOAT. It's used in an Australian university to train students for reflective writing. The acronym is for Describe, Interpret, Evaluate, and Plan. When using the DIP model, you attempt to analyze your own performance as a learner, evaluate your gains in understanding and completing tasks, verbalize how you feel about your learning, make connections with other experiences and ideas, demonstrate transfer of learning, and integrate the concepts taught in courses, including literature where that's relevant. When you select the model you think will work best for you, remember, you can also adapt and bring in ideas from the other models. They are complementary, they're not at loggerheads with each other. There's a difference between descriptive and reflective writing. Descriptive writing provides background information, the what, the where, the who. It's used to describe a situation, a circumstance, what happened, and it's written in the third person. For reflective writing, that type of information is important, but it can't be all you provide. Describing is not sufficient for reflection to happen and for learning to progress. Reflective writing includes description, but it also explains and explores. Reflective writing concentrates on why and how. It may express feelings and emotions. It's subjective and can be written in the first person. In other words, you can use I. You may refer to a source, a model, a theory to back up a particular argument you're making. However, it really has to do more with that personal reflection. So do connect with evidence if you want, but don't lose sight of the central goal of personal reflection. Reflective writing also differs from descriptive writing in that it is analytical. You can see that clearly in some of the models. The Gibbs model, for instance, involves looking at the strengths and weaknesses of a situation, analyzing the different elements that bring together that particular situation and its complexity, having a look at the parts. Reflective writing assignments can be unstructured and not assessed. For example, your own diary, documenting your progress and privately reflecting on your learning. Here we're more concerned with structured and assessed reflective writing, such as reports, blogs, and learning journals. Let's look at structure. You need an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. That structure is applicable to a report of a few thousand words as well as a blog entry of a few hundred words. The introduction provides background information to the event and circumstance and outlines the main points or sections you're going to be exploring in the body of the entry. In the body of the report, the main section, you will have the following elements: description, analysis, evaluation of the issue in hand. You explain the problem, explore the feelings, connect with similar past experiences, link to what you know from theory or practice, what you learnt, and how it will inform your position in future situations. Analyze and evaluate the experience. What worked well or poorly? What was your role in the event? What did you notice? What did you do to be aware of the situation? What learning can you extract from the experience? How will you bring that new learning to future situations? What is the outcome of your learning? What new approaches or steps are you going to consider for future situations? What will you do differently in the future? What advice will you give your former self? What should you watch out for? Are you going to check with other classmates or lecturers? Finally, in the conclusion, you provide a summary of the event, the new learning experience achieved, and what you plan to do next time. In terms of word count, allow about 10% for the introduction, 10% for the conclusion, and the remaining 80% for the body. Be consistent week to week. You could even begin by explaining what model you've chosen to use for your reflection and how you will apply it. Over and above the need to write correctly, paying attention to spelling, punctuation, and academic language, you need to have clear and complete sentences. Your vocabulary needs to be extensive, appropriate for academic work, and discipline specific. The language you use must be formal, so no colloquial expressions. Remain concise, remain focused on the issue, and be consistent. A sentence is the smallest collection of words that makes grammatical sense and expresses a complete thought. It is very important to keep this in mind and to write in clear sentences, communicate clear messages. While of course there's a lot of variation in writing, you should aim for sentences of about 13 to 20 words. The most basic sentence structure is subject, verb, object. A paragraph is the unit of a single idea. So, one paragraph, one idea. That idea is expressed in the topic sentence, which is usually at the start. The paragraph then develops that idea in more detail by explaining, by giving an example, by elaborating. Let's move on to looking at two examples of reflective writing. The next slide here is going to show 10 questions. That's a lot of text, so pause the video to take them down. Resume the video to get to the slide showing the example. Again, that's a lot of text, so pause the video to read it and answer the questions. When you've answered the questions, resume the video. Here are the questions for the first reflective writing sample. The next slide will show you the title of the sample, which is in the form of a blog entry. The slide following that will be the full text of the sample. The title for this reflective writing sample is Selling Codeine-Containing Products. Pause the video to read through the sample and answer the questions. The answer is in the first sentence, modules related to pharmacy in TU Dublin. The student starts by contextualizing the entry and clarifying how she knows about the issues she focuses on in this blog post. Her knowledge comes from the pharmacology modules in her course. She gives a clear definition in the text here. It's a moderate painkiller related to morphine and has a weak suppressant activity for coughs. Apart from relieving the symptom of coughing, it also mimics the action of natural endorphins by combining with the opioid receptors in the brain and spinal cord, thus reducing pain. So she gives a very clear definition about what this product is, what it's used for, and what its effects are, both for coughs and for pain. She outlines what she knows about regulations here, so she knows there are restrictions. She also knew the pharmacy policy and a mnemonic widely used in pharmacies, WWHAM. Who is it for? What are the symptoms? How long have the symptoms been present? Action already taken, and medication also being taken. This is not a repetition of the previous item. It refers to other medications already being taken, unrelated to the problem at hand. Some of it she learned as a part of her course, some of it she learned on her own initiative. To answer this, we need to look at the student's consideration and evaluation of her interaction with the customer. The customer wanted to buy a certain product. She knows that this product can create addiction because it's an opioid. This means that she has to engage with the customer and ask a number of questions. The customer becomes angry, so she takes the initiative to go and check with the pharmacist and see how to take the case from there, how to manage that particular situation. She notes that she was satisfied she'd acted within the law and within her remit as a trainee. All of that is her reflection on a particular situation within a given context. More importantly, she asks herself what she would do differently in the future. How could she perhaps manage the situation in a less confrontational way? As she puts it, the interrogating approach she took was perhaps too blunt and too difficult for a customer to deal with. Perhaps that is what she needed to look at. How to get an answer to her questions, but in a manner that doesn't bring about this confrontational reaction from the customer. She read the Pharmaceutical Society of Ireland's guidelines on the sale of products containing codeine and was aware, in future, she can refer this type of customer and this difficult type of a situation to the pharmacist. She assesses the situation and decides she can be more sympathetic and feel more confident dealing with this in the future. Note how the student refers to the overall context, the situation, evidence, what she knew, documents she can check, policies she can put in place, and which can inform her interaction with the customer. Her description of the event and her interaction were quite good, but there's room for improvement. The written reflection shows that she understands this as she lays out how she will manage such situations in the future. How would she prepare herself for any future situations like this? How would she inform herself? What would she attempt to do differently in the future? All of that is learning. All of that brings about a new understanding. And if a similar situation arises, it doesn't have to be the same product, but maybe a similar product. She knows how to react and how to handle it and how to manage it with care and ease while still abiding by the regulations. Writing in an academic environment usually connects with the specificity of the discipline, and that shows in the language used. So what words in that particular blog entry are discipline specific? This would be words that are different, that we are unlikely or less likely to use in everyday language. For example, painkillers. Yes, we use the term in everyday language, but not very frequently. The words opioids, morphine, endorphins are more discipline specific. Apart from the discipline specific words, the student's vocabulary is very appropriate for an academic work. There are words that we're unlikely to use in everyday conversation with friends, and we can certainly find words with the same meaning that we use more frequently. When we're writing in an academic environment, to a lesser or greater degree, we have to use academic language and discipline-specific words. Block sample 2 is from the same discipline, the same course, and indeed describes the same type of situation. However, there are some striking differences between the two entries. Pause the video as needed to read the text and consider just this one question. What are the main issues with this entry? The level of spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, colloquial words, and informal style is striking. Even the name of the product is spelled differently in different sentences. It's clear that the student did not take time, certainly not sufficient time, to proofread. There is no mention of what needs to be improved in the future. There's an attempt to describe what they would do differently, but it doesn't go into the same level of detail as the first student did. There's very little reference to the course that she's studying, what she's learned there, what she's learned from regulations, what those regulations are, where they can be found. In this video, we learned what exactly reflective writing is. We discussed 4 models for reflective writing practice. We made a comparison between reflective and descriptive writing. We looked at the structure for a reflective writing assignment, including a brief mention of the structure for paragraphs and sentences. We discussed language and style, especially in the examination of 2 samples of reflective writing. TU Dublin's Academic Writing Centre offers thematic workshops that teach you about specific aspects of academic writing. This video presentation was based on a transcript and slides from just such a workshop. We offer one-to-one consultations with a tutor if you need individual help. We have a wealth of resources, both on campus and online. You'll find our web pages when you search for Academic Writing Centre TU Dublin. This video is based on a transcript and presentation of a workshop created by Maria Jose Gonzalez. It was adapted to video format by Nadia Williams. Special thanks goes to Julie Dunn and Sinead Ryan for the blog samples that we used in this workshop.